Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles. And we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
Dude, welcome to Breaking Barriers.
Awesome. Thanks
We
for having
have
me.
Joe. We have my guy Joe Gyumolcs. Is that how you say it?
Gyumolcs.
Very
okay. Close.
I literally, no joke, with the Y throws me off. So
Yeah.
I literally had to try to, when you see stuff in a dictionary, it gives you the way to say it.
Yep.
So anyway, dude, stoked to have you on. For people. So first off, I met you back in Red Bank days. How did we meet initially? Do you remember? How the heck
Originally,
were we at an event or something?
It was another business.
Yeah. No, I remember that. But I'm saying, how did we meet for that business, though?
Man, I don't even know.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. How did we meet?
It was through networking of some
It had to have been, right?
It was. And then,
So how did we meet initially? But anyway, so I met you years back,
Yeah.
probably 3-4 years ago.
Yep.
You and your dad, great dudes. Now you're in the insurance game.
Yep.
And I guess the financial planning game.
Yep. Financial guidance, I guess you'd
Guidance,
say.
okay.
Yeah.
Let me get technical
Yeah.
there. So now in a topic, so what I love about this, right, is you're the first person in 2024 that we're having a podcast with.
Awesome.
So I'm stoked because we rescheduled this 10,000 times.
I know.
But we made it.
We made it.
It was both of us.
We're
We made it, though,
Yeah.
right? Now when I bring people on, I typically like to go through the things in business that, we can go both personal and business, but in business that can be, helpful, help people, help their businesses grow, help them with different strategies, to hold money, be able to have better investments. And the one thing that almost every person I know on planet Earth that has I don't know one person that loves to pay insurance.
No,
right?
no one does.
But I want to start there because I think, maybe you can help people listening in here understand why they should love it.
Yeah.
And I know it's a tough, I guess it's a pretty tough question, but when I put out that you were going to come on to the podcast to our listeners, a lot of people asked that question, right? I hate paying my insurance, or I hate insurance, I got this claim, whatever. I actually have a crazy story I'll tell you after this.
Okay.
But I want to start there with you. Talk to me about why people should love insurance.
Okay, so insurance is a broad topic, right? There is a lot of different insurances.
Yes.
At a basic level, if something happens, you want to make sure that you have your assets taken care of.
Right.
So you buy a house, you buy a car.
Yep.
That's the basics, right?
Right.
You're buying you're getting a mortgage and the house burns down and you don't have insurance.
Right.
I mean, you kind of need the insurance legally to get a mortgage. But
Right.
if you're buying cash, it's a different story.
Right.
So at a basic level, you want to make sure your assets are taken care of. But
So and now just to clarify, so if somebody buys a house cash, you're saying you don't have to get insurance.
you don't have to.
Right.
No,
Okay.
mortgage. There's no mortgage to require it.
Right.
So
The mortgage, the banks make
can-
you get it.
Yeah, you can self-insure.
Right.
Which
And the same thing goes for a car or anything.
Yep.
So if you own something outright, technically you don't need insurance.
technically,
Understood.
not advised, but
Right.
you can do it. I have clients of mine that they have their homeowners and they just self-insure. They just
Right.
own a home.
Right.
That's it. So, but with the insurance industry, we're talking about paying for it,
Yeah.
right? It's not a fun thing, especially right now. The industry is borderline upside down.
Right.
It is so expensive.
Right.
Companies are leaving the state of New Jersey and other states left and right.
Wow.
So you kind of have to work with someone that's really going to be. I work my agency as more of a consulting and less on price.
Got it.
So I like to just go through the coverages and make sure you understand what you're actually getting, not
Right.
just focus on price. Because, and I'll suggest if there's something better, I'll tell someone to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Whatever's best for them.
Right.
But if you understand I think if you understand what you're actually getting, what the policy does for you in
Right.
more detail, then it's a little better of a pill to swallow
Yeah.
of what you're paying instead of just what am I paying for?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I typically find myself, so I'll give you the story. So
Okay.
and I'm not gonna mention the insurance company that I
Okay.
used for this.
Yeah.
But so I had boat rentals, right? So I essentially purchased a couple houseboats. And in a nutshell, I had 3 houseboats. And in a nutshell, we had one go up in flames.
Okay.
I had a tenant on it, and I was renting them out. So it was full houseboats. So in the wintertime, so a tenant on it, I never met the wife of the tenant. I only met the husband. And he never mentioned anybody else being in the boat, whatever. Long story short, she was a drug addict. Didn't know that, right? And he was super straight, good dude, contractor, whatever. Long story short, one day I'm up in the city. I get a phone call from the marina owner, who's my client. And he goes, "Get here now." And I'm like, and this guy does not fuck around. This dude is a serious dude. He passed away now, but he was a very serious dude. So he calls me, freaking out, and I'm like, what's going on? He goes, there's a fire on your boat, get here, and he hangs up on it, right? And I go, wait, excuse me? Because I have my personal boat there, and I have also these investments. Okay. So I'm like, okay. So I call him back, he's not answering now.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm darting from the city to get down there, right? And I get there. I kid you not. There's probably 3 or 4 fire trucks. There's, at this time, probably 3 to 4 different cop cars. And there's people from the brick patch taking pictures already on the scene. Because obviously I was late.
Yeah.
So I get there and I'm hiding. I want nothing to do with this, right? So I'm hiding. I'm tucked away in the corner. I'm tucked. Nobody can see me. I'm not even there. I'm a fucking tick on a cow's ass, right? Nobody can see me, right?
Yeah.
So I go in the office. I'm like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And he's like, there was a fire in the boat. And I see this girl. And then, mind you, this is like 2 years ago, but this was probably late October, early November. So it's like cold out.
Yeah.
And so I just see this woman in the middle of the parking lot with a towel on her. She's soaking wet. And she's just like on a chair in the middle of the parking lot, right? And I'm like, who the fuck is that lady? Walk in, sneak in, right? I'm a tick on a deer's ass. And I go, what's going on?
Yeah.
And long story short, they're like, this, your tenant fell asleep while she was smoking a cigarette and the boat went up in flames and luckily she didn't die. And I go, I don't know that lady. Who is that lady?
Yeah.
Right? Whatever. So long story short, everyone leaves, the boat's done. It's dead, right? It's a burnt piece of toast now.
Yeah.
So, and that boat was next to the other boats. So luckily there was not a 3 fire, but it burnt the siding off of, or like a little bit off. It was fixable.
Yeah.
So off my other boat. So anyway, long story short, I call the insurance person, that I had.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, no problem. Just give us the information, whatever. So I give them the information. Long story short, at this point I've been paying the insurance on these boats, and they denied my claim.
Really?
Yes. So I went through this whole battle, this whole thing, whatever else. Long story short, right? Like I, at the point in time, did not know that for those types of let's call it a vessel or that dwelling on the water, you cannot rent them out. They're only for personal use, right? Did not know that. Long story short, so I just had to essentially cut my losses. Luckily, the only blessing out of it was that I was Airbnb-ing them throughout the summertime before, and then that person who his wife wound up ruining the boat. She paid up front for the winter. So between Airbnb and whatever else, technically, I probably only lost like $1,000, $2,000 as opposed to the whole investment because I had that.
Oh my God.
But with that said, for me, there's so many people out there that have that bad taste in their mouth when it comes to insurance. Because okay, I pay it, and then once it's time to pay the piper, boom, right?
Yeah.
But now the difference is, right, is now the reason why I like it for certain things is it depends on the value you put on that thing.
I agree.
If something, God forbid, something were to happen to a home, right? Even if it was cash paid, if you have, act of God, right, and a tree falls on your house, all the way through the middle of your home, that's a $300,000 right there, rebuilding the infrastructure of your home, right? And most people, if you paid it cash, that could put you in a bad position, or you may not be able to pay that, and then you're just fucked, right? So I think there's things like that make me feel like, all right, you know what? Like, obviously, it's important in certain areas. Like, car areas, it's tough because if somebody dies in an accident, or if there's something serious where it's like, it could be $1 million lawsuit. Right? If you don't have $1 million on you,
or an umbrella policy,
right,
covering your assets too.
So now on that topic for businesses, I see that you have things like cyber, that you guys cover and stuff. Talk to me about that. So for people out there that obviously most people now market online, store people's data for their customers on their websites and on their data, their servers. What does that cover?
So cyber, actually, I probably should update that on the site. But a lot of the companies that I used to work with there, they don't write.
So they're done.
No, so a couple of them moved out. I use one of the companies called Chubb. I use them a lot.
I like that, Chubbs.
Yeah, Chubb, yeah.
That's what we call Rob.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, on the commercial end, sorry, that was funny.
You threw me off with that. It's CHUBB, Chubb?
Yeah, Chubb.
Love that.
Yeah. And they're a great company, but on the commercial end, cyber used to be a lot easier to get.
Got it.
Right? It's just quick application, you're good.
Yeah.
Now with all the cyber crimes going on,
I don't even touch that.
it's a brutal process to do.
Right.
And you actually have to work with a company that can pretty much put the technology and the cybersecurity already in your business as a precautionary before you even get approved for the application.
Okay.
So when it comes to the commercial end, I actually remove myself from the commercial on the home and auto side, or like just the business owner side.
Right.
And I refer that, I have a separate contract to do that to business, because I don't want to deal with that. Yeah. So
I like that for a new nickname, dude. but let's add an S on it to make it cool, like Chubbs. Yeah. Come on. It has nothing to do, that's what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with the aesthetic. I'm just saying, like, I like the name Chubbs. I love it. And how did you come up with that nickname? Well, it is an insurance company.
That'll work. But with cyber, it's important, and anyone that has a business should have cyber liability insurance. It's just that's important.
Yeah, let's bounce around a little bit. I want to talk about so in insurance, right? You are in a space where it's so competitive, right? It's similar to me. It's similar to real estate agents. It's similar to anybody in sales, right? Yeah. You can throw a pebble and hit a million sales agents, right?
100%.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
So what is your tactic for somebody that's listening to this? Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not trying to get into insurance. Maybe they're trying to get in a different sales position. Mm-hmm. How have you grown your business?
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been doing this?
Been in the insurance industry 7 years.
Okay.
Had my own business for 4.
Okay. So but how have you built this up for yourself? Like what's been the best, like if someone's listening, they're like, damn, I want to get in like, real estate or whatever, but it's all sales based. Know somebody, got to sell somebody.
Yep.
What's your advice to them?
So what I did when I first started, and I actually started this before I started my agency, so kind of had a little bit of a leg up because
When you were doing this before with your insurance, with the
insurance
company
industry,
you were working
I was working with, because that allowed me to, because I went from a salary and commission job to starting a scratch agency with no income. Right?
And why'd you do that though? What made you jump? Said fuck those guys?
No, they were great guys. They're great guys. I still refer them business for certain things I can't write, but I looked at the contract to becoming an agent with that company. Yeah. It wasn't as advantageous, and it was one of what they call captive agencies, so you can only sell that company. Got it. And I just felt, for me, I wasn't doing the right thing by the clients, because if it's not the best policy for you, I'm selling a brand. And that's fine to an extent, but if it's not the right thing for you, I kind of felt it wasn't morally right. So I went the independent space where I can work with pretty much any company at this point, and I can do whatever I need to do. Right. But when I first started my agency, what made the difference for me was focusing on referral partners and strategic alliances. Because my entire practice, it's between 80 and 100 leads a month, hot leads that come to me. Yeah. That's all referral based. Got it. So I don't pay for leads, which most insurance agencies, they do like online, ever quotes and stuff like that, which I just don't think it's worth it. I'd rather invest in people. Yep. And what I did was I poured into other people, and I just sent them business. Because I read this book, The Go-Giver. Yep. You've heard of that?
I have not, but I like that.
I highly suggest everyone that's listening to this.
Instead of go-getter, go-giver.
Go-giver.
I like that.
Go-giver.
I like that.
Everywhere.
Rob's pissed. I like the name. You don't like the name? Come on. Chubbs, you gotta read The Go-Giver. Gotta read The Go-Giver.
Gotta read The Go-Giver. It's by Bob Berg.
The Go-Giver. I like that because it plays on go-getter.
Yeah, it's the best.
Go-getter, go-giver.
And it's all about giving with no expectation of return. But once you do that, things come back to you in spades, and you can't turn off the spigot. But it's doing it wholeheartedly and not doing it with
for something in return. Yeah. But you know what the challenge with that though is that, listen, I'm a big believer in that. I've done that for a lot of my career. But in the back of your head, right? Like if you're out there doing it, like obviously you want to be a good person, you want to help, right? That's one thing. Yeah. But do you not feel like, even though you're doing it from this mentality in the book, right, that you're still doing it ultimately to get more business? That's just your new channel. Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah. But the same token, if some people don't send me back business, but they do a good job on my clients, I don't care. Yeah. I don't make money from it, but it helps someone out. Right. It's a win. Because at some point, something will come back from that. It's like, okay.
So is this played to your moral compass, you're saying? Like it's helped your moral compass?
More of the moral compass.
Okay.
But it also, I'd rather take the time to help other people's businesses succeed. And if it comes back to me, great. Yeah. If it doesn't, okay, it is what it is. It's not like I get burned because I'm helping people out.
Totally.
If I give people 100 leads and you get nothing back, okay, it is what it is. Right. But maybe you can spread that out to a few other people and something can happen. Right. If you're looking at it from a strictly business perspective. Right. But regardless, it's more of, I think for me, it's a steady business because I'm getting these leads now that or 80 to 100 leads a month, just hot leads.
Yeah.
Where I can invest in people instead of investing in online sites, which I believe in marketing, marketing and branding, right?
Right.
But
brand building,
but specific companies that are used for insurance agencies to generate leads. Yeah. They just haven't been effective. I used them when I was in another agency and it just wasn't worth it. So I tried to find a different path and it worked. So we kind of like what I call referral partners, strategic alliances. It's like best friends now.
Totally.
Like they literally went. A bunch of them came to my baby shower.
Nice.
My fiance's baby shower. Not, whatever. But you know what I'm saying. But but they'll be at my wedding, right? So it's they're not just business partners. They're friends and family now.
Totally.
Which is what makes.
So would you say? So people, there's a famous saying where it's not personal, it's business. Do you prescribe to that?
It's not personal, it's business.
Yeah.
Because
what I'm hearing you say with that scenario is that business is very personal for you.
Yeah, I think it is.
Where not most people, it's a lot of people. There's a group of people, right, that think that subscribe to the fact that like business is business, and you have to put the personal feelings aside and whatever else.
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent, that you put personal feelings aside, but at the same token, if I'm going to go to war with people, like I want those 20 people in my corner that I'll go to war with.
Right.
Like that's where it becomes personal because I know them on a personal level.
Right.
If it's just business,
it's different.
It's not deep enough of a relationship for me to want to invest time, money, effort, resources into their business too to help them grow.
Right.
Because then it's like, okay, if it's just surface level and there's nothing deeper, it's just business, it's like why would, like you're saying, insurance agents, real estate agents, what's the difference of them just going to work with someone else?
Totally.
If it's just business is business, then we're not going to work together. We're not going to work together.
Right. So, and that's a good point though, because I think a lot of people don't like kind of know, and we're moving into a space, right? For people like you and I, right? How old are you?
27.
27. Okay. I'd like you to think about that.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't think. I was like, wait, I turned 28? No,
20.
Yeah.
So 27. All right. So damn. So I'm 32. I'm going to be 33 this year. Okay. And again, old. Rob, how old are you?
34.
My God. Turning 34 this year or turning 35? 35. Stop it.
Oh, man.
The big 35?
Big 35.
Shit. Chubbs. God damn. Anyway, so the whole, I'm still not over that yet. But anyway, but the whole thing though is that like most people that are the Gen Zs, right? So you'd qualify for Gen Z. Technically.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so you're technically a Gen Z.
Okay.
But the younger side of the Gen Zs, right? And then even past that now, obviously you have Gen Alpha, which is our kids, right? Yeah. So, but Gen Zs, right? They have the least loyalty ever in consumer history. Yep. Because they have so many options, right? It's not that they're assholes, right? I mean, so at the end of the day, it comes down to the future of people. Like, for instance, like I grew up, and I'm sure same with you, right? Your dad obviously in the contractor space too. Yep. You know, you grew up where your dad got referrals because people go, oh, you wanna what? And what's his name? Is he Joe too?
Michael.
He's like, oh, Michael, you want a good painter? You got to call Michael, right? And if Chris outside told me Mike is the guy, right? And I trust Chris. Yeah. I'm going to Mike because it's like I saw he did a good job based on Chris's house. Chris is recommending him. I'm going to trust Chris and I'm going to say, I'm going to give this guy a shot. The way that Gen Z operates is they don't give a fuck about Mike. They care about the price. Yeah. And they want information. So they're going to look up all the reviews. They're going to look up everything else. And they're going to say, all right, screw Mike. I'm going with this other guy because this guy's cheaper and he can do it faster. Yeah. Right? That's what they care about. And honestly, what we've seen though is what technology and things coming fast to this generation. It's how in millennials, we were the generation that grew up like Windows 95 came out, right? And I remember like Chubbs is there, 95, right? So
wasn't even born yet.
right. So like at 95, you remember playing all the computer games and shit? Yeah. And it's like, or backyard baseball. You ever play backyard baseball? All those things, right? Pablo Sanchez. Come on, Sanchez. And at the end of the day, the thing that's crazy is that when you look at it, it's like I had a couple of years of my life that I was super cognitive in knowing like the only thing I do is go outside and play, and things took forever. Yeah. But now, and dial up, like it took forever to computers start. Now Gen Zs grew up in their first ever like environment where it's like things are fast. Yeah. So they want things fast. The point is that brand building is important and accessibility is important, right? Because ultimately at the end of the day, the way Gen Z's operate is if they're looking for things and they can't find it, you don't live. You're not alive, right? Yep. So I wanted to ask that for you, because you are a Gen Z, which is so crazy.
Interesting you say that,
yeah, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I don't think you operate like a Gen Z at all.
I think I got an old school mentality.
You do, and I see that through and through. That's why when you said 27, I'm like, oh damn, he's a Gen Z.
Yeah.
But so I don't think you operate that way. But a lot more people that are in your demographic do.
Yeah. Correct.
So for people that are out there listening to this, one of the things I will say, right, because we work with a lot of industries that are super, you know, they're older, right? Like insurance has been around since the dawn of time, right? It's an older, archaic industry typically. Yeah. And you know, the biggest thing is being accessible and having a brand, right? If people, and the one things Gen Zs will flex, you know, Bamba socks.
No.
So they got famous and they grew tremendously. The fastest growing sock company in the world because of one scenario. You buy a pair of socks, they donate a pair of socks to somebody homeless or in a country that needs socks. Cool. Now, Gen Zs will get on board, same with millennials, this is one thing they have in common, or one of the things, is that they'll get on board with something that has a big mission. So I'm willing to pay more if this company is doing something and I feel morally right that I'm buying a pair of socks, but I'm not buying just a pair of socks for me now. I'm buying a pair of socks that's getting donated to somebody who needs it.
Got it.
So that's the two things. It's accessibility and then secondarily the other one. So that being said, in most sales industries, what's so tough is that over time, right? So like I actually have a really good friend. His father is a mogul in insurance.
Okay.
Dude's filthy rich.
Awesome.
Filthy, right? But he's been doing it for like 30 years.
Yeah.
Now, he was saying that like in sales, just in general, sales has shifted so much that like the loyalty things have changed. So I guess I'm asking you, right, in your game. So right now you're still doing it the old school mentality way.
Yeah.
Right? Now as people are getting older, right, because you're young, but you have a whole career ahead of you.
Yeah.
You have 20, 30 years in your horizon. Same with me, right? So how do you see yourself adapting? Because I think the one thing we're seeing is that now that scenario is starting to change where it's like, oh, you know, talk to Joe, invest in just relationships. Also, the one thing I love and I also like don't love about what you're saying, right, is that it requires all of your time, right? Like as an example, like you have one child, right? And I'm sure, do you want to have more or just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one child is a lot. Like there's a lot of work.
There is a lot of work.
So I'm saying, when I was younger starting adapting social, I was out there grinding and shit and I didn't give a fuck about my time.
Yeah.
But when you have a kid and a wife,
I already see that now.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now it's different.
Yeah.
So the one thing and I got this from Tony Robbins a couple years back, but Tony was like, if you want to scale something, and your time is your number one asset and the company's number one asset, if you're always out and in order for the business to grow, you have to be physically somewhere, you'll never scale to where you want to be.
Yeah.
So for people listening in, I guess two-parter. Okay. One thing is it's developing. I like to look at like a chair, right? Like a stool. Like think about business revenue like a stool. What channels is the stool bringing in of revenue, right? So right now you have one stool leg that's bringing you in a good amount of revenue, which is good. Thank goodness.
Thank God, yeah.
But I always look at it like as a business, we always have to layer ourselves and say boom, boom, boom. That's why one thing, if I was you, I'd be fucking doing left and right, is having a podcast.
Yeah.
I would have a podcast where you want like your biggest, like people who are like prospective clients for you, pop them on. The one thing, and this is for people listening in, I said this a million times on the podcast already, on this podcast, but it's like, it's the way to not solicit somebody and to get them on. Like perfect example, like I've had probably close like, over the past 5 years, I've probably had close to like 50 people. I've had 190 interviews and I've probably had like close to 50 people become clients, but I intentionally brought them in because I was like, I want to get to know them because I didn't know them. I never met them before, whatever else. But they were huge companies, and my team emailing them, advertising to them, all this other stuff didn't work, right? Sometimes that happens, especially when they're big enough where like I don't need you, right? But you get them on a podcast. Now you're sitting here and you're having a great conversation. You kind of get to know each other a little bit, and then it's like, oh hey, you know, by the way, you know, I want to do this on my website or whatever else, or my insurance is looking like this. So it's definitely something I would recommend for you. But for people out there listening, it's a way, if you're in sales and you need to talk to people, it's content, which is great for social. And then additionally, you're meeting people, right? As opposed to you have to be everywhere. But anyway, back to what I'm saying, how do you see yourself strategically shifting, knowing that as the years go on, that people, because eventually your kids and my kids will need insurance, right? When they're older.
Exactly.
Right? And you'll still be, young enough to be in the game.
Yeah.
So how do you see yourself kind of pivoting?
For me, well, you hit the nail on the head, actually. It's branding.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that I've lacked personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And it comes down to time, like
right.
I said, because I'm running technically 2 businesses in one.
Mm-hmm.
So with that alone, before even my son was here, it was already a challenge.
Oh,
so,
God, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's a lot. But it's something that needs to be done for me personally, getting the content out there, because I have a lot of friends, probably even family at this point, that don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
right?
And that's a fucking issue.
That's an issue.
That's an issue.
Which when I was going through 2023, I'm like, wow, that needs to be hit in 2024.
Yeah.
So, but that's huge, because if I can't get out there and talk, because I can only make so many phone calls a day. My team can only make so many phone calls a day.
Right.
And with the influx of leads that are coming in now, I had to hire a second full-time assistant just to max out that time.
Good.
So it's good.
Yeah.
But we could be doing a lot more.
Right.
So for me, it's getting out there, doing more content, branding. That's one thing we're talking about right now.
That's huge. And I think that's the one thing too that people. So the segmented difference, and I'm not saying this for you because I think you understand it.
Yeah.
But for people that are listening to this, it's so different when somebody says to me, okay, I want to build my business, but I've been advertising on social media and I'm not getting leads from it. It's like, wait a second. When you market on social, right? So the difference between social and Google and search engines. Do you know the differences?
Well, social is more of content getting out there. Then Google's more direct. More I guess specialized. Like you're targeting people more specifically.
Right. Well, they're looking for something.
Yeah, like they're searching keywords.
Right. Like if
SEO.
Correct. Well, the difference is I'm saying is like, so if I'm on Instagram, right, and I'm a surfer, right, and I'm and somebody knows based on my interest that's advertising to me says John's a surfer, which for the record I'm definitely not. But if I was, and they're like, all right, boom, I'm gonna advertise him a surfboard because he's a surfer, right? I could already bought a board a month ago, right, before I saw this, and now I'm not gonna buy, but you wasted advertising dollars on me. Now I'm not gonna buy, but now I know the brand, I saw it, so it's good for branding. Whereas Google and major search engines is good for people who say, I'm looking for a surfboard. Now I'm competing for that user and that prospective customer because they're hot. That's why so many people, especially in insurance, most of the companies we work with, the cost per clicks are outrageous because you're competing with New York and you're competing with all these major companies like Allstate, NJM. They're putting millions of dollars a year into search because they know that somebody is going to that. If they're typing in insurance, that means they're looking for insurance.
100%.
Whereas on social, they're not. So just understand that, guys. When you're looking to market and advertise, if you put your ad spend into social, that's for branding, right? You don't go to Google or search engines to brand. Like you go there to get hot buyers now. I want them, right? Versus, okay, who am I? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to share that because most people will spend a bunch of money on Facebook and Instagram and be like, I didn't get shit back. And it's like, you're not supposed to because it's more brand.
Yeah, and what you're thinking about now, we're just saying.
Okay.
With insurance related, although it's not like you're saying, branding, it's more, oh, hey, I may have just got insurance.
Yeah.
But insurance, you can re-look at every 6 months, every year.
Yep.
We're talking about that side of the business. Other sides of things that you set up long term, that's a different story.
Right.
But even having the branding, although it's not hot right now, if they get that awareness, right, then they can, if they know you're there, they may think of you next time because every 6 months you should be reviewing it.
Totally.
If it's auto insurance, right?
Totally.
If it's homeowners every year, just looking at what you're looking at. So it's very, very good perspective to look at. Side.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say though too is when you think about like an athletic shoe company, what's the first thing that pops in your head?
Nike.
Right. When you think about a hamburger you get anywhere in the world.
McDonald's.
Right. And like the only reason why we know now, does McDonald's make the best burger?
No.
Right. This is brand. That's just pure brand.
Branding,
right. And the one thing I even thought about too was like when you think about Apple. I love Apple.
Yeah.
I'm like huge Steve Jobs fan. I'm a huge I love their products, love their like durability of it. But when you think about it, Apple could put out like a fucking bidet in my toilet, and everyone's gonna buy it.
Everyone's gonna buy it. I was listening to something yesterday, and they were talking about how strong Apple brand is.
They could do anything.
They
could do anything, right? And so, but the point is, at the end of the day, that's the sign of a great brand, right? And so like that's why it's so important to invest that. And the one thing too, just for advice for you as well as anybody that's listening right now, in 2024, it's all about media content.
Yep.
People just want to, and to your point, right? So it's about, in some spaces, if people are seeing you and you're going the route of like, okay, I'm doing referral systems, which is fucking awesome. That works. Like most businesses operate off of that. It's not just you. It's most businesses. Now, but the brand building side of it, people want to see your face. They want to see you talking about what you're doing. They want to see you behind the scenes. They want to see you at a show, at a conference. They want to see you working with a client. They want to see you having wins and losses and talking to your team. That's how they want to. That's how they want to know why and if they want to work with you. Because the one thing too that people that they don't realize is that when people go and they see that online, Joe's a good dude before they ever meet you, and they're like, wow, this guy's good energy. He's a nice guy. He's a father. He's this, he's that. Then they're like, all right, this is a nice guy. I want to give him a shot. Versus having no idea who Joe is, or just seeing pictures of Joe or whoever. I'm just saying in general. Yeah. People want to see the behind the scenes. Yeah. They want to see who they're going to potentially work with.
I like that.
Now let's shift gears. So, what does success look like to you, right? So now that you're a business owner, right, for the past 2 years, right? That in most businesses, people start, and this was another Tony Robbins thing that he shared. He said, people start a business typically for two reasons: out of desperation or out of like a passion, right? Now, in this instance, a lot of times when you build a business, you build it to be essentially something that supports your lifestyle, right? Now, that being said, is there like what does success look like to Joe, right? So like if you were like the peak of the mountain, like you achieved everything you wanted to achieve, give me the visuals, like give me the understanding. What does that look like?
When I think about success, it's funny, I actually am part of just recently part of a men's group that meets, and we just really just went over this, so your dreams and details and vision and everything. And if I boil it down to the very basic, it's just waking up every day, doing what I want to do when I want to do it, and not answering to anyone. Right. And doing what people I love and care about. Right. At a basic level. Right. Right. Because building a business and having income and having wealth is great, but what do you do with it? Right. For me, it's it's just freedom for me. Yeah. To be able to do what I want to do. Right. And not have a price tag attached to anything, or not have any just be able to provide the best for my family. Yep. Because growing up for me and my brother, if we want something, we had to go and work for it. We started working at 14. Yeah. It's like when I was like, you want a phone? Go get a job. You want a car? Go get a job. Right. So we had to grow up very quick. I was getting the bus by myself in 4th grade and locking down the house. Right. Right now, probably get diaper school on you or something. I don't know. But like it's just being able to provide when I see success for myself, it's being able to provide the lifestyle that I didn't given. Have. Yeah, not given, right? Nothing against my parents, right? Yeah. They worked hard. Totally. And they still work hard, but I want to provide something better for my kids. Yeah. Right? And that's why I work so hard to be able to do that. Right. And be able to give him choices. Yeah. Like not have to work 14 if you don't want to. I want to still teach that work ethic. Right. Right. But be a kid for a little bit. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And be able to. But so here's my challenge. Yeah. Right. With that, and I've struggled with this. Do you know Sal Ventry? Yes, I do. Okay, so Sal's like one of my best friends. He's a great guy. So we were having this conversation at New Year's Eve, past New Year's Eve. Yeah. Let's say this after, but so we were saying how part of the reason why you are who you are is because you didn't get those things you want to provide your son. True. Now, giving that to your son, are you going to create somebody who's more spoiled or maybe more entitled? And again, not saying that that you would want that. No. But with the things that you didn't have made you into Joe that you see today. It's true. Which is tough. And so him and I always talk about it all the time. We're like, damn, like my son Johnny, and I have Vienna and Vincenzo coming, and I'm names. Like, thank you. And I'm like, I don't want them to grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth and a gold one up their ass. That's not happening. Right. So at that point, but right, and that's what me and him were both saying. That's what everybody says. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's not gonna happen. Right. But there's only one way, and there's one road. Right. There's no fork. There's only one road that develops somebody who is driven enough to want, or hungry enough to want something, and it's the lack of stuff, right? So it's whether that's the lack of love, whether that's the lack of the parent being close and giving them advice, whether it's the lack of
financial resources. It's a lack of that gives them this stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's interesting. So how do you
do it?
How do you provide that, still drive, but still be able to make sure they're taken care of, right?
It's tough.
That's it. And I mean, me and my fiance talked about this. I was like, my son, he's working for his first car. I don't care. I'm not giving
100%. Like, that's what I said too.
Care. Like, you have all your basic needs met, but no, I think if you work hard for what you have, you appreciate it more.
1
if I just gave you a car, you'd be like, oh, great, thanks. But
cool. You crash it.
You're like, okay, I'll just get another one. It's like, but if I worked multiple hours and I bought that car cash for myself, and whether it's a point A to point B car, right? Piece of crap, but who cares? Right. You appreciate it more, and
but it's your car.
Yeah, and I work.
What was your first car?
It was a 2000 Saturn Ion that I bought for $3,000 cash, and it only had 20,000 miles on it.
What? That's a deal.
I got the
steal.
Oh my god, the best mechanic, and he used to sell cars. Well, he still sells cars on the side, but perfect mint condition.
Wow.
Worked in restaurants and just paid it off.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I totaled that on black ice going to high school.
Were you okay? Did you get hurt?
Oh, I was good. Yeah, I hit Belgian block. I was one of 14 cars to go off the same curve.
Oh, get out of here!
It was in a residential area too. It wasn't even that. We weren't going fast.
Wow.
Just sheets of ice. But then that crashed. Then I bought another one that was a Toyota Celica that I bought for around $3,000 too.
Yeah.
Had that for years.
Wow.
A 2-door car, just had it for years until I bought it first.
I remember that Celica. So yeah, mine was a '97 Acura CL.
Nice.
That I bought cash too. I think it was like $2,700. Yeah. It had 120 miles on it. And I thought that was nothing. I was like, this is fucking nothing. 120,000 miles? This is fucking brand new.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm like, this thing, I might as well put a bow on this thing.
That's awesome.
But you know, I went to hell and back with that car, but I literally appreciated it like every fucking day because it was my car.
Yeah.
And to your point, so I think the one thing that we haven't cracked the case yet, right? Because it's still out for jury. Our kids are still young. Yeah. But the one thing there's two things that Sal said that we were talking about.
Okay.
The one thing that he said that I want to throw your way, and anybody listening who has a new child or a baby or a kid, you know, whatever, you know, the mentality of almost all people that are parents and especially business owners have typically been, I'm going to work really hard right now so that I can spend as much time with my kids later in life, right? And so we're sitting here, and Sal goes to me because him and I have both always shared that. Like, let's do this so that like our family can live this lifestyle, and whatever else, and you know we can be present with them. Yeah. And he said, I was talking to this person. They said to me like, I'm doing the complete opposite. It's like because what happens when your kids go to like middle school? Yeah. They don't want nothing to do with you. Nope. High school, nothing to do with you. College, nothing to do with you. And it's not until they're older that they kind of like start to want to do shit with you again. And at that point, if you have free time, you know, or whatever, I mean, realistically, obviously at that point in time later in your life, you're going to have more free time naturally. Yeah. But when you're their hero is when they're fucking young. Yeah.
And I actually heard pretty recently that hit me like a ton of bricks.
Dude, me too, yeah.
Most people want to have a work-life balance.
Yeah.
Right?
Which I don't agree
with. But we should be trying to have a life-work balance. Right?
Yeah.
But create the life that your work goes around.
Right.
Not create a life that just goes around with your work. You're working all these hours and then, a little bit of my life's here. It's like, no, let's create the ideal life. What does it look like on paper? Yeah. And visualize that. And then, okay, how do I design my business around that? So like you said, you can be present with your kids. Yeah. Right? I think that hit me like a ton of bricks. So I was like, wow, it's just a small change in the wording, but it makes a huge difference.
It's huge. Dude, so after Sal said this to me, no matter what, even before, because like so I will absolutely not, and it's funny because we're saying this on record. We can go back 10 years from now and look at it and be like, Joe, you asshole, you said you were going to do this. This kid's spoiled.
We have this on record. All right.
But the one thing, though, that like I refuse to do is spoil our kids with any sort of financial stuff, right? But the one thing I will 100% that like I did not get, right? And this is the one thing that I think matters is time. The only thing that I think matters in a kid's life when they're young is the time that you give them. And so for me, like over the, like I've been doing this for like 15 years, right? With my business, with adapting. And so the first like 10 years of my life with this was just nonstop, like early, home late, like never, like there was no such thing as any sort of balance. It was just work, right? And I loved it. And I don't regret any of it. I love what I do. Yeah. But with that said, you know, I started to say, wow, like I wasn't working out. I wasn't doing this. I wasn't doing the things that I cared about. And then eventually I started being like, well, I love what I'm doing, but I don't love how I look, or I don't love that I don't get to see my mom all the time, or I love that I don't get to see my grandma or hang out with my grandma. Yeah. And then eventually I had a fiance, then I had a wife, and it was like I don't ever see her. And my executive coach that I had at the time was like, if he's like, the way that you work, because I look at business in my calendar. If something is in my calendar, I will, in most cases, for most of my life, be late everywhere. I will be at least 5 minutes late anywhere I go. It's like guaranteed. My wife hates it, right? Now, at the end of the day, if it's business, I'm always 10 minutes early. And I don't know why. I guess it sucks to say, but I think I look at it in a more serious way. And so my coach goes, clearly if something's in your calendar, you value it more. So let's start putting in your calendar the days you're going to go to the gym. Start putting in the calendar the days you're going to read a book. Let's start putting in the calendars the day you're going to go on date night with your wife. Whatever. So now this is like years ago. Now it's the point where like I have scheduled time in my calendar every morning to be with Johnny, to be with my wife in the morning with them, to date night still, after work shut off times where like I'm like dark mode just with the family, and that has been so like it's been so cleansing because it's like I'm itching to get back to work the next day because I'm like I'm not looking at my phone, I'm being with my son unless it's an emergency, of course, but it's been so cleansing, right? And I think the time that I give him and my two other kids that are coming, the time that I give them, right? I want them to always say, like, I saw this thing with Tom Brady. He got interviewed, and this little kid, dude, I literally was like, I got choked up watching it. The little kid was everyone's asking all these questions, and this one little kid gets on the mic and goes, "Who's your hero?" And he's sitting there, and Tom's like, and then he starts like tearing up. He goes, "My dad," and I'm like, damn. I'm like, that's success to me. If my kids go, my dad is my hero, and he is everything I want to be in this planet, even for my daughter, right? Like, obviously, like I'm a man, she's a woman, but like for her to be like, the values that my father has, the way he holds himself, the way he's there for us, that's like what I want, right? I love that. And so I think that's the biggest thing that we can do, and teach them, right? Because like at the end of the day, like I know, just knowing my brothers, I was the oldest of 5 kids, and I helped my mom, raise my siblings, and so at the end of the day, like they're gonna ask questions, right? Like if my son's like, "Dad, I want to get this car," right? And I'm like, "No, you got to go buy," because he's gonna know you got to buy your car. But you're driving a new G-Wagon. Why can't I have one? Because I bought it. Right.
Worked hard for it.
You didn't buy it. I bought it. So you have to buy your own. Right. It's like that type of shit. You know what I mean? Like, but I want to talk them through that stuff, and it's gonna be difficult. They're gonna be pissed. They're gonna hate you in certain moments. But why can't I do this? My friends, dad bought him a brand new Jeep. Why can't I have that? Right. It's like, am I your friend's dad? No. Right. So it's so hard in retrospect looking back, but like those lessons, like I had a lot of issues with my father growing up. Right. And now he's my best buddy. But it took, again, another Tony Robbins reference, it took me going through and hearing one thing from Tony Robbins and essentially saying, everybody in this room who has an issue with like their upbringing, everybody in the fucking room raised their hands, right? Because not everybody had perfect upbringing. But he said, if the person that you have the most resentment towards the most, right, has that those difficult times has made you into who you are today, if you have resentment towards them, still knowing that you are where you are because of them, then there's something wrong with you, not them. And it shifted my whole relationship with my dad overnight. And I think at the end of the day, those challenges made you who you are. And Brandon Novak, who we had on the podcast a couple years ago, do you know Brandon Novak?
I've heard,
He was on Jackass with Bam Margera and those guys. But he was like my what the hell do you say? My misfortune became my fortune, because now he goes on the road, because he was a crazy drug addict, like almost died 3 times. His mom picked out a plot in a grave for him, and he goes and now he goes on the road and he speaks to sobriety and like all these other mental health things. But I love that saying. It's like most people, you either turn your misfortune into your fortune, or you stay and it forever stays your misfortune. It's
interesting.
All right, so before we wrap up here, Two last questions before we plug where people can find you. Cool. They're difficult. One's a little bit more difficult exercise of a question. And then one's like a little bit easier. It's a little mild, right? It's like a mild one. One's a spicy, one's a mild.
Sounds good.
Which one do you want first?
Let's go with the spicy first.
All right, let's go. So we've been asking this question now for probably 2 years. We better have 2 years. And well over 100 people, right? And the cool part about what you just said there was that, let's say 98% of the entrepreneurs that have been on this podcast have asked for the difficult question first, which is very in line with an entrepreneur, which is we run towards the fire, not away from it.
Yeah.
So love that. So now, a lot of times we look at legacy from where Joe's feet are planted here today, and looking forward of what you're going to do, how you're going to be remembered. I want to reverse engineer this and think about the one thing that will supersede you, your kids, their kids, and it's your gravestone. So if you were to write that today, right, paraphrasing, of course,
yeah,
what would that say? Who would Joe be remembered by? Like, how would Joe be remembered?
That is a spicy question. How would be remembered?
And remember, this is legacy. So this is don't think about just you today. Think about what you want to be, and what you want to be remembered by. So picture. So now, just to give you kind of like a movie, it's your great grandkids walking up to your gravestone, and they don't know who you are, and it's two generations past you, right? So they're not like, Joe is funny, he was this, he was that, great guy, great beard. Like they don't know you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They're only reading.
Do you know your great grandparents?
My great I have a great grandmother still alive. She's 98.
No way. God bless her. Oh my God.
But which is insane, right?
That's insane.
But so she's 98. Now anybody else, I've never met any other great grandparents. I never even heard of them.
Yeah, like I don't even know my great grandparents. Like I don't even know their names.
Right.
I don't know anything about them.
Right. Don't hear about them. Whatever.
Which is like kind of makes you think. I heard this from Alex Ramosi.
Yes, dude, I love when he says that.
He's the man. He's just like, you're gonna be forgotten.
Yeah, nobody's gonna know who you are.
No one knows. So what you do doesn't really matter. Just do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And do what you want to do. But in that respect, it's like, how do you make someone remember you? Right. What kind of impact can you make?
Right.
So for me, I don't know what that'll be, but what I want it to be is like, I want them to know my great grandkids and just that I made a difference for them.
Right.
And something that can create a legacy, whether it's a massive real estate portfolio or whether it's just making an impact in people's lives. Like if I say the podcast, I take your advice and start a podcast, but it helps a ton of people, right? And that content lives forever, right? That's something that they can look at, right? Something that's like a capstone almost.
Totally.
Right? Or in the insurance space, I mean, a plug for on that, and I created something for my son that which eventually will go into a trust that will create a legacy that they can use, right? That will be generational, right? Which is something that's monetarily, but when you're thinking about making an impact and what that gravestone will say, I want them to remember me for making an impact on everyone's life. Like, I don't know what that will be right now. Right. This is the first time I've ever been asked this question, which is really cool. But when it comes down to it, just making a difference. Yeah. That's really what I want it to be, and they'll remember me that way. Unfortunately, I don't know how, because I've been in a room where this question was asked, does anyone know your great-grandparents? Right. And then great-great-grandparents. Right. Only a couple people said great-grandparents they knew. Not a single hand went up, and over 200 people have great-great-grandparents. So what is it that's going to make the difference for them to remember you and know who you are? I don't know. Yeah. But that's, I don't know if that answers the question directly, but kind of. Yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult one. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've heard over time that I like and stuff, and when I think about like I've had grandparents go that I've met, but I was too young to like remember like distinctively, and people would say, oh, he's a great guy, he'd give the shirt off his back for you, right? Like, oh, funny guy, always wants to make sure everyone's laughing in the room, things like that, like so. It's stuff like that you think about, because at the end of the day, Alex also says too, which I love Hermosi. Yeah. He always says too, like, if you just give people your fortune and a trust, you're essentially going to be the person who put your family in this trajectory because you just gave them something. The car concept, right? Well, with a spendthrift clause on it. Not, well, of course. Of course. I'm just saying in general. I'm not handing them any. Like, of course. Oh, you got to put a lot of clauses in there. Yeah. Like, hey, you're not just getting millions of dollars and here you go. They'll end up in the grave or something. Of course. Like, oh my God, no way. So, but yeah. So anyway, lastly, last question is: has there been any quote or adage you've heard over the years that, when it comes to like persistence and resilience, that really stands out to you? Like you said, a quote? Yeah, a quote, something like that. One that sticks out to me, I don't know if it's more resilience, but just about people. Yeah. Here's Bob Dylan. Yeah. It don't matter how much money you got, there's only two kind of people. There's saved people and there's lost people. Safe? Saved. Oh, saved. Saved people and lost people. Got it. So The way I look at that is it doesn't make a difference. It matters who you are from the deep down. What makes the difference. And you could have a gazillion dollars.
Right.
You could be miserable.
Right.
Or you could be broke and you could be the happiest person alive.
Right.
So it depends on your perspective. But,
love that.
That always hit me. I saw that when I was in middle school. And that's one of the quotes I still remember to this day.
Yeah.
But when it comes to persistence, I mean, not really a quote per se.
Yeah. I asked this question because when I first started adapting, I was 17. I was a teenager in high school still. And I remember like just being, I guess, a cheesy teenager, like looking up shit that I could like, essentially print out and put on my walls and just motivate me.
Yeah.
And the quote that I found was, live a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't.
Yep.
And that's the life that I live right now. Because I was in the trenches. And in a lot of different ways in my life, I am in the trenches in other ways.
Of course.
But it's like in order for you to emerge, you have to struggle. You have to sink. Mm-hmm. Just the name of the game.
Yeah.
And I had to like look at that identity and say, or that analogy and say, wow, because most times when people are doing something in the beginning, right? Like they start something and they're like, oh, well, I want to make $1 million first. First year, I want to make the money I want to make, or I want to, be crushing it the first year. I want to be notably recognized by people for doing what I'm doing the first year.
Yep.
And that's not how it works,
Yep.
right? 99% of the time, it doesn't work that way, right? So it's like you have to do it in silence for a little bit. You have to not make great money for a little bit.
Yep.
You have to like be just doing the work until you get to a place where you've done enough work that now it's chasing you.
Yeah, and to that regard too, the one other quote I thought about, that last sentence got in my head, was a book I was reading recently that was saying the only easy day was yesterday. And it's actually Navy SEALs. They have that quote. I believe it's a Hell Week around that, whatever.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So the only easy day was yesterday, but it's the same concept that if you think tomorrow's going to be easy because you just had a win and if that's it, you're gonna get crushed.
Yep.
It's like the only easy day was yesterday. That's it. Now what's next?
Yep.
Because the second you take your foot off the gas or you think you made it, it's like you fall behind.
The best thing I ever heard, and I heard this when I was a kid, was you're only as good as your next at bat.
I like that too.
Especially in business.
Yeah.
Especially in careers.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you had a fucking grand slam yesterday.
Yep.
If you show up today and you don't have a grand slam ready again, or if you ain't hitting them out of the park, that's all everyone's looking at.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's all everyone's looking at. I'll never forget when we just at the time opened up our Wall Street office in New York. Okay. And it was a huge milestone for us, right? And this is 2016.
Okay.
And so we were super stoked. I'm up there, we're celebrating, we're having a good time, whatever. Long story short, and that same day, like I had, everyone was like texting me like, oh, congrats, this is so epic, so epic. And I was dealing with other fires like at work that day and other things going on. And I wasn't even focused on the celebration, right? And it's like when you're in business, that's kind of how it is, especially when you're growing and scaling. It's not always just like let's celebrate and just everything's great, right? It's like what is your next at bat? Like that was a win for me, but then there was something else going on, right? So in business, when you're the owner, the buck starts and stops with you. It's the
100%.
only person.
100%.
So all right, good stuff, Joe. It was so great having you here, man. It's great seeing you again. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you.
You look great, man. You have a wife. You said you're getting married?
Getting married, yeah. I feel like we've been married for years, but we're
there you go.
Yeah, no,
we'll call her wife anyway.
Yeah, I call her
wife. You got a wife at home. You have a healthy, beautiful son.
Yep.
I'm so glad to see that you're doing well. You have your own business now. Glad your family's doing well. Where can people find you? So, again, for social, website, if they're looking for stuff, where can they find you?
Yeah, at Joe Gyumolcs. The last name is Gyumolcs.
Yep.
Good luck if you need help. Just reach out to John. But at Joe Gyumolcs on Instagram is probably the best way.
Cool.
And then we can connect from there.
Awesome, man.
So.
Well, dude, I'm glad you're doing well.
Thanks, you too.
Guys, go give Joe a follow. On your social, you give away tips, or you talking about insurance and stuff like.
Yeah, I mean that's nothing with the branding that I'm going to get more into.
Good.
But happy to help with anything I can.
Cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody, create a great day. You're in charge of it.